In the 1940s, during World War II, in all over Europe and the Pacific, all over the world, even in Africa, there was reports of Foo Fighters. At the time, nobody knew what these objects were. They were just basically, glowing orbs. Sometimes they appeared solid to some people who saw them, and people are flying missions over Germany or in the Pacific, wherever during World War II. There was occasions where sometimes all of a sudden these weird lights would show up. Sometimes two or three of them following along with some of the aircraft that were flying around. Everybody's heard of these stories, the Foo Fighters. What were these objects? Obviously, I could tell you right now. I mean, Occam's razor tells you, you already know what they are. There's no way that they were man-made. Right? There's absolutely no chance of it. Some people say it was secret Nazi technology. No, it wasn't. These things didn't have any means of propulsion. There was no visible means of propulsion on them. They were able to pretty much fly along with our craft and then just disappear. I mean, we don't have technology. We still don't have technology that can do stuff like that and no visible means of propulsion. These were obviously some sort of probe. They're alien probes of some type. Their purpose, you could speculate all day on. We just don't know whether they're interested in how we flew. Were they trying to figure out what we're up to? I mean, who knows? But there's some sort of probe. Anyway, there was a pretty decent article in the Debrief. It was last year. It was published. It was written by Graham Rendell. I highly recommend you check out this article. It's a pretty long article, and it was published on April 15th, 2021. And this person gets into the whole history of Foo Fighters and then provides his opinion on it. And actually, he clears up in this. Like a lot of people say that the first reports of Foo Fighters was 1944. Actually, he clears this up here. It says no, people were seeing them in 1942. And then he has a bunch of different cases listed here. It's a pretty lengthy article. But anyway, we're going to go through some of them. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I'll read some excerpts from it, including this part right here. Over the last 12 months, I have been revisiting and reevaluating the known Foo Fighter cases, and in the course of my research, have also found some new encounters in preparation for a book I am writing on the subject. Much of the information is buried in air intelligence files and squadron war diaries, most of which is barely legible due to the ravages of time and the flimsy wartime grade of paper used. However, many cases never saw official recognition, and researchers have to rely upon aircrew logbooks and personal interviews, in many cases conducted decades after the events being recalled. The vast majority of wartime witnesses are now deceased, and a large proportion took the details of their sightings to their graves, electing to keep quiet about their encounters. There are well over 100 known Foo Fighter sightings from the three main battlefronts during World War II, Western Europe, Mediterranean, and Pacific, but strange lights and unidentifiable craft were also witnessed over both North Africa and the Eastern Front. To give an idea of the encounters that transpired during the war, here are three of those cases, all of which occurred long before the traditionally accepted start of the Foo Fighter phenomenon in November 1944. A Polish crewed Vickers Wellington bomber was returning from a raid on Essen just before midnight on 25th March 1942 when the aircraft's rear gunner spotted a bright light approaching their aircraft. However, instead of a Luftwaffe night fighter, it resembled a large, fuzzy, copper-colored ball about the size of the moon. Approaching within 200 feet of the bomber, the gunner opened fire, watching helplessly as his tracer rounds entered the ball of light to no visible effect. They did not come out the other side, nor did they inflict any appreciable damage. The strange light then shot forward and took up position off the Wellington's port wingtip. Now the aircraft's nose turret guns could be brought to bear on the strange light, and both gunners blazed away at what was still thought to be a Luftwaffe night fighter. The pilot executed a series of evasive maneuvers but could not shake the ball of light. It remained at the same fixed distance, seemingly undamaged, for several minutes until it finally flew around to a point ahead of the Wellington, remaining in place for a few seconds before shooting off into the distance and disappearing. Another crew flying behind the bomber, also had their own encounter with the object but refused to report the incident for fear of ridicule. In the spring of 1943, over North Africa, a New Zealand fighter pilot was followed by an orange-red glow, a light that when moved to sit off his wingtip, matching his every turn, including a series of violent evasive maneuvers designed to throw off potential attackers. Taking advantage of an apparent time lag before the object matched his actions, he managed to fire his Hawker Hurricane's guns at the light on a few occasions, but to no effect. The pilot could not distinguish what kind of aircraft or object was generating the light, as it was so bright. It grew dimmer as they crossed the front line, but once beyond the firing, it glowed with its original intensity. The RAF pilot's mysterious companion vanished as he returned to base. He knew of numerous colleagues who also had run-ins with the light. This encounter, similar in many respects to Commander David Fravor's now infamous dogfight with the Tic Tac, predated that event by more than 60 years. And that's interesting, isn't it? You know, it's basically the same stuff that was happening then as some of the same kind of things are happening now. Anyway, continuing. The United States Army Air Forces... Wait, I want to say one more thing, too. And you think about the UFO reports coming out of Ukraine. I know a lot of debunkers are trying to tell us it's either insects or artillery shells. Wow, that's a big discrepancy there. Is it insects or is it artillery shells? Anyhow, who knows what those objects are flying over Ukraine. It seems like these visitors that are here, they're interested in what we're doing when we're fighting each other. And that's apparently what was going on here. Apparently. Anyway, continuing. The United States Army Air Force's 422nd Night Fighter Squadron had its fair share of sightings in late 1944 and early 1945, including a notable event over Western Germany during the first week of October 1944, when an extremely rapid object latched onto the tail of one of the unit's Northrop P-61 Black Widows. The mysterious ball of light followed the cruise machine as the pilot threw it into a violent set of evasive maneuvers. Despite his best efforts, he could not shake off his pursuer and in desperation finally dove into a bank of cloud. The ball of light did not follow. Colleagues in the squadron stated that the pilot's radar observer was badly shaken by the experience and was still sucking wind 24 hours later. The mysterious ball of light was officially logged as a Messerschmitt Me-163 Comet rocket-propelled interceptor. There would be many more bizarre encounters with strange lights before the year was out. And then he has an analysis here about what he thinks they are. And I'm not going to read all of this. However, he does have a conclusion on everything, and we will get into that. Looking back to incidents that occurred nearly 80 years ago may seem like a waste of time to people caught up in the current heady rush of United States Navy encounters, UAP photos, and future government briefings. What appears to be forgotten is that the accounts of November 1944 and November 2004 are not too dissimilar when you boil them down to their basics. Drop a P-61 Black Widow pilot into the front seat of an FA-18F Super Hornet, and he might gaze in awe at the new technology on display in front of him. Put him in David Fravor's position, and the P-61 pilot would realize that the Tic Tac demonstrates a much higher level of sophistication than the machine he was now flying. Military aircraft may have vastly improved over the intervening 60 years, but whatever our pilots are continuing to come up against during training flights, the mysterious lights and objects are still running rings around them. To this observer at least, it also appears as if those who are supposed to be in the know still don't have a clue what is going on, something else which hasn't changed since 1944. Trying to ascertain the origin and motives of the Foo Fighters is akin to figuring out what is going on with the current UAP phenomenon. Stories suggest that German pilots also encountered the Foo Fighters during World War II, but I have not been able to find any reports that stand up to even the briefest scrutiny. Without trying to sound like a debunker, the photographic evidence that exists is probably faked, is a film defect, or another mundane occurrence. I gotta stop right there. Now, I don't know how can you say that? How do you know that? How do you know that some of the pictures of these things that we have, some of the pictures that were taken by some of these pilots of Foo Fighters, were faked or film defect? They actually said they saw the object when they took the picture. Here's the picture And then you'd say, oh, it could be a fake, or it's a film defect, or another mundane occurrence, maybe a natural phenomenon or something. But no, they said the ball of light was falling. They took a picture of it. Here's the picture, and yet you still don't believe it. And again, I don't know. I don't know why you would say that. But anyway, pictures that pass these tests subsequently fail in terms of a lack of supporting information. None of the photos I have found in the course of my research have accompanying notes about locations, dates, or names of the aircrew involved, and are therefore treated with a healthy dose of skepticism. Without context, they are practically meaningless. I like to think that if annotated photos exist in a military archive somewhere, they presumably sit on a shelf next to pictures of the crashed Roswell craft and the Kecksburg Acorn. Now, I just want to say that actually, some of these pictures have been around for a long time. There's been a lot of pictures that have been, made public years ago in the 50s and 60s. It's not like they weren't around. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe they're not annotated and, and they weren't kept the way you would want them, but there's pictures, right? We know that there are, and they are presented by somebody who was still alive, who witnessed these things back at a certain time. Okay, you don't have all that information, but still you have pictures. That to say that they're fake or a film defect or another mundane occurrence, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, why can't they be real too? Can't they be real? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying that some of them probably could be a fake, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but couldn't they be real too? Anyway, continuing. And then he goes on, despite a lack of photographic evidence, the Foo Fighter phenomenon is redeemed in terms of the sheer number of witness statements, logbooks, and intelligence reports that confirm the existence of strange lights and other odd flying objects during World War II, if not their nature. Reports of Foo Fighter encounters are compelling, but leave plenty of scope for argument and debate over their veracity, origin, and purpose. I don't think so. I don't believe that. No, they don't leave any debate. To me, it's clear cut. I mean, there was a lot of these incidents, right? He talks about them here in his article. Tons of them. Tons of incidents, right? Of these Foo Fighters. It's obvious, right? Let's use Occam's razor. They're objects controlled by some intelligence, an intelligence greater than what humans have, right? So obviously they're extraterrestrial. End of story. That's it. That's what they are. They were extraterrestrial probes of some sort. That's end of story. It's as simple as that. I mean, what else could they be? That's the best explanation we have. It's not natural phenomena. Natural phenomena doesn't show intelligence. It doesn't stop and follow you and run rings around you and then disappear. Like, no, that's not natural phenomena. It wasn't Nazi technology. It couldn't have been. Nazis didn't have that kind of thing. Nobody, no human. We still don't have that kind of technology. So, all these people weren't lying. So obviously, it was real. These objects were real. People during the World War II saw them on a regular basis, it seemed, over many different events over the years, over the course from 1942 through 1945, saw these objects. They were alien. They're extraterrestrial nature. What they were doing, that's anybody's. I don't know what the answer is to that, but that's what they were. There's no question about it. They were extraterrestrial. It's simple as that. Now let's just move on. Foo Fighters are extraterrestrial. Now let's just move on. I mean, that's the problem with when we talk about certain things, right? This is what drives me nuts. Well, we don't know what they are. We don't know what they are. No, we know what they are. These objects, tons of people saw them during World War II. These little objects flying around, right? Some sort of orbs, right? Tons of people saw them. Tons of people who were fighting in the war saw them. A lot of flyers and the plane personnel saw these things, following the thing. So they were obviously showing some sort of intelligence, these objects. So obviously they were controlled by somebody. Human beings, we don't have that kind of technology. We still don't. So there's only one answer. It's extraterrestrial. It's an extraterrestrial intelligence. End of story. Let's move on. Let's just accept that. I mean, it's common sense. It's common sense. It's extraterrestrial. Anyway, continuing with this. Reports of Foo Fighter encounters aren't compelling, but leave plenty of scope for argument and debate over their veracity, origin, and purpose. Fast forward to April 2021, and a quick read through postings on UFO Twitter tells me that nothing has changed in this respect. UAP remain unidentified, and people continue to argue over what they represent. Well, they represent alien beings. They represent an alien presence. That's the end of the story. Here's the story. UAP, flying saucers, not everything now, but the ones that defy the kind of physics that we know. The ones that do things that our technology is unable to do. Those objects are controlled by extraterrestrial beings. That's the answer. It's as simple as that. It's right in front of your face. It's common sense. If and when the current state of UAP sightings is explained to the satisfaction of most commentators and onlookers, perhaps the information we receive will help us understand historical encounters such as the Foo Fighters, Roswell, and Socorro. Well, I'll help you understand it right now. It was aliens. There was aliens that crashed in Roswell. I did the research, so I know this for a fact. Socorro, I mean, obviously it was an alien craft. I mean, that what Lonnie Zamora saw in Socorro in 1964, it was an alien craft. That's what it was. There's no other explanation. There was little beings there. Their feet were tiny. There was footprints left in the ground. There was evidence that was left behind. There was vegetation that was burned. The imprints in the ground from the landing legs was there. Project Blue Book looked into it. They didn't have an explanation for it. Lonnie Zamora wasn't lying, right? And he saw little men that, obviously, he saw them from a distance. Now, he never said that they looked like aliens, but he was pretty far away. But they were like little kids. Little kids ain't operating an object, an egg-shaped object that flies around in the sky, right, and makes no sound while it's flying around, right? So it's extraterrestrials. That's the answer. There's no, what are we arguing about? The whole story here, I mean, it's not just Foo Fighters. When you think about everything, when you put everything into context, it's not just Foo Fighters. It's everything. We're talking about everything here, right? The problem here is that here's what the story is. There's an extraterrestrial presence on Earth, but yet there's a big chunk of the population that just can't accept that. They don't believe it. So even this guy, he's basically talking out of both sides of his mouth in a way. Oh, he's skeptical. It could be fakes. Could be this. No. Okay, let's pretend all the pictures are fakes or phonies or something mundane. But that still doesn't explain all the witness reports that you're talking about here. All the people that saw these things. So what about the testimony? Were they all just making it up? Were they drunk while they were fighting the war? Is that what it is? Were they flying around drunk while they're fighting World War II? Hey, pass that bottle back here, Butch. I want to chug half that bottle of vodka before we go flying over Berlin. No, I don't think that's the case. So that you have to look at everything and you make a decision. Like there's no decision here. Like at the end of this, you looked into this, you have all these cases, but at the end of it, and again, I think this article is great. I think this research that this person did is fantastic. I like the debrief. They have a lot of good articles about UAP. I think it's great. I mean, there's a number of articles that I get information from on here, and this is a great article on that. But at the same time, the conclusion at the end of it is like, well, we don't know what it is. No, we do know what it is. There's no question about it. It's extraterrestrial. It has to be. It's the only answer. Nothing else makes any sense. Anyway, I'm going to read the final couple sentences here. One could argue that the Foo Fighters are still with us. They might have changed their shape and name, but they are still the same elusive phenomenon that has baffled military personnel who have confronted them in the skies for almost 80 years. Yeah, they are baffling. Yeah, we don't know what their purpose is for the most part, but they're real and they're here and they're extraterrestrial. There's nothing. I don't know why we're still trying to figure out. Well, you need more proof. No, what more proof do you need? I mean, we're talking 80 years here. Actually, we talk about, I always say 1947 because that was when it really started, right? But before that, there was an introduction, a preface to this. I mean, of course, the preface goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. I'm sure that there were objects here, things coming here to this planet beforehand, visiting and up to something before the 40s, okay? But, we always pretty much talk about the last 75 years as pretty much the cover up. I don't think when the Foo Fighter business was going on, I don't think anybody in the militaries of the world really were thinking about that at the time. We were trying to stop the world from getting taken over by the Nazis and the Japanese. I mean, that's basically what everyone was worried about. And then a couple years after the war ends, all of a sudden everyone's noticing, hey, there's these flying saucers all over the place. What's going on? But anyway, it's extraterrestrial. That's the answer. I mean, we're like playing a lot of us are playing games. The story here, the story of everything, the story of flying saucers and alien visitation is that. And 100 years from now, 200 years from now, people are going to look back at this time and going to say, yeah, well, how early on a lot of people just couldn't accept it. They didn't want to believe it, even though the evidence was right there in front of their face. How could they not see this? How could they not realize that there's an extraterrestrial presence there? Obviously, these objects were way more advanced than anything humans had back then. So how come they couldn't accept it? And yet there was other people out there trying to tell them, hey, open your eyes already. But yeah, that's the story of the Foo Fighters. They were actually extraterrestrial probes of some sort. Who knows what they were doing? But it was obvious. There's no question about it. It was, they were controlled by alien beings, and they were interested in our flying machines at that time, and probably interested in what was happening with the war that we were fighting. I mean, who knows? That's all speculation, that part, right? However, they were there. A lot of people saw them. Hundreds of people saw them. There were reports, and it's extraterrestrial. End of story. There's nothing here to, wonder about. That's what it is. Period.